welcome to Questions from the Crowd. Today we're joined by David Hunt and Jeff Grady, both co-CEOs and co-founders of Better That. Today, around asking questions that OnMarket investors have asked us to ask you. So these are potential investors who have asked us several questions. What we've done at OnMarket to group them into different sections, make it easy for you to answer. The first one, I guess, and the big one that a lot of people are asking in relation to, as we sit here locked down in Sydney, I know you're in Brisbane, Jeff, e-commerce, the macro trends, how's COVID impacting upon sales, obviously clicks versus bricks, but just sort of some macro trends there that you're seeing as co-CEOs of Better That in relation to sales figures and how COVID's impacting on that.
Yeah, so Tim, that's a really good question. You know, we're sitting in the right space at the right time. What the pandemic has done is really accelerate the movement from particularly retail spend to move it from a bricks and mortar presence onto online. So something like about 40% of all retail spend these days is now being done online. And this is not just an Australian trend, it's a global trend, but we can see it really clearly in the data that's presented from innumerable sources. But the easiest one to see is the Australia Post data. So, you know, last year, for example, we saw a shift to online spend that roughly accelerated the pre-existing trend by about 2 years. 1.3 million Australians came onto various platforms to spend. That's just a huge increase. And that was just in 2020. And we've seen the same kind of trend continuing on in 2021. So that raises real challenges for retailers about how to improve their offer, how to be more dynamic in the online environment. And that's what Better That is here to help solve.
What are some of the pain points there at the moment for retailers and consumers in relation to purchasing?
I might take that one, Tim. You know, the major challenges for shoppers on e-commerce marketplaces at the moment is that the market is really fragmented, it's cluttered and it's inefficient. You know, it's difficult to find in that one site the exact product you're seeking, consistently and accurately described, with delivery options for when you want it, and the price that you're comfortable to pay. It is very, very difficult to navigate through the maze with the current e-commerce market. You know, shoppers are also being bombarded with broadcast advertising at every level, which is just annoying, and people are distracted from that. Shoppers are rarely awarded also for that loyalty to retailers, suppliers, and brands. You know, on the Better That site, if you're a retailer, you will have the opportunity to market to, unlike a lot of the other platforms. So we see there the issues for shoppers. For retailers, in stores, sales, while they're still dominant, they are continuing to decline, and retailers need a new distribution channel. Many of our current retailers on our platform are small bricks and mortar retailers, and they don't have an e-commerce presence. And so being on the Better That platform allows them to have that. Retailers are often caught in this fixed percentage sales discounting cycles to shift surplus stock, and also slow moving goods. Key options for the retailers on our platform is the Better That drop auction, which we'll discuss later on. Retailers are spending excessive amounts on marketing advertising with no guarantees at the moment of shopper response, visitations to their stores. And if they do have an online presence, cart abandonment is a huge issue for retailers. You know, it's over 70% currently. Most retailers have limited options to pay on success only, and the cost of advertising is a real cause for them. And COVID is probably the biggest issue hitting us here in Australia at the moment and globally, with store closures from a retail perspective, and the online market is sometimes the only avenue for them to make sales.
So just from a question that we're getting on numerous times, point of difference that Better That brings as opposed to the other e-commerce platforms that are out there, Can you guys just sort of summarize that in 30 to 45 seconds? Who you are, how you're different, and why you're someone that we should be paying attention to.
So what our platform does, Tim, is give the ability for the consumer and the retailer to interact. And with our coming better that drop auction platform, that's an ideal place where they can essentially bargain over the sale of goods. But if I just take a few other comparisons, what we don't do is we don't compete with any retailer on our site. So in that sense, we're kind of different to the marketplace or Amazon. We have a buy it now functionality as well as these coming auction products. So there are almost no other sites around that offer that auction capability. And it just uniquely offers an ability for a retailer and a customer to come together and bargain over that price that they want to pay, both in our current format and with our coming auction products.
And what's it like for you guys? You're both co-founders, you're both co-CEOs in setting up an e-commerce platform in 2020, 2021. How are you going about attracting one, retailers, and then secondly, customers? How are you finding that, and what's the pathway forward for the next sort of 6 to 12 months on that?
Yeah, look, it's a really exciting place to be in, Tim. So I might talk about retailers, and I know David's got some comments on how we go about customer acquisition. But for retailers, it's largely a question of just direct approach to them. What's really important to remember here is there's no inconvenience, no cost to retailers in terms of joining our platform. So they can list on it essentially free of charge. The only charge that they ever have is a commission charge for when they sell product on our platform. So it's a success fee basis. So no surprise, we have no difficulty attracting retailers onto our site.
No inventory held then by Better That?
No inventory held by Better That. So in that sense, we're very different to a Kogan, for example. So we've got no working capital tied up in that. We've got no risk associated with, not selling stock, for example. We're there to put the sale together between the retailer and the shopper.
Okay. David, did you want to talk again about the customer side?
Yeah, so thanks, Tim. From a shopper side, the two key avenues which we're using at the moment is direct marketing and using the good cause referrals. So direct marketing is the social media, Google Analytics, and print media, which is the key driver of that. And that will drive a lot of acquisition to our site over the next 12 to 18 months. We had a really good program on Channel 7 where they featured us in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth. And we got over 1,000 registrations out of that process. On the good cause referrals, they've got in excess of 3 million on their donor base in social media. And so having access to those from the 50 good causes, which we've got at the moment, is a really good way where we can, on a cost-effective way, acquire shoppers. The next ones which we're looking at is working with our retailers to provide them access to our database and us access to theirs, where we can share data across that, and then in a common way, market to their own databases where we can have exclusive offers on our Better That platform, which will also drive that current shopper with the retailer. Shopper referrals, which is the standard one in the marketplace there, refer a friend, that's available on ours. And then the final one is when we launch our soon to be released drop auction technology, where we will have a big give promotion in and around that. And that's where we will jointly work with the retailer to offer products on a night where the products are reasonably expensive, brands which are well known. So for example, it could be a Sony TV at $2,000, no reserve price, a really big give. And in that big give, all proceeds would go to the good cause. So that's how we bring that ecosystem together with the retailer, the shopper, and the good cause. Sure. And we think that will attract a lot of registrations to our platform when that gets launched later this year.
Okay, you both referred to the Better That drop auction technology. Can we hear sort of a little bit more about that, how it works? Because I think it's really exciting and it's obviously a massive point of difference. that puts you guys, right in the frame of things in terms of e-commerce, I guess, innovations going forward. So it'd be great to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, so Tim, we think that our drop auction technology works in any market where you have that willing buyer and willing seller. Shoppers offer a price that they're willing to pay on goods being offered for auction. In other words, it allows pricing to be driven by shopper demand and goods being offered, and retailer supply. The fundamental of the drop auction is that the retailer can initiate an auction at any time on any of their products where they have multiple shoppers to compete to buy that product. The retailer will set a reserve price, which will be unknown to the public. So the great thing for the retailers is that, one, it eliminates cart abandonment because someone's got to pre-register on the auction and we get all their details. And at the fall of the hammer, when their price is accepted by the retailer, the transaction occurs. So no cart abandonment. The second one there is that it reduces the issue which retailers have with fixed price discounting. And so that's where you might have end of season stock where you decide to have 25, 30% across the market, across the store sales. What the retailers can do is they can actually go in and have that product starting at their recommended retail price and then slowly decreasing to their, let's say, their 25% floor. And they will pick up sales over the course of that at discounts not at the maximum 25%. So they can actually maximise their revenue through that process. And the final one there where we think it's going to really drive retailers to our platform is that sometimes in the bricks and mortar, they've sold product at the full retail price and they don't want to go next week and say it's 25% discount. So their important clients are not going to feel great that they've paid 25% more. So they can actually white label it through a drop auction, which they can then keep their branded store with their prices where they are and sell any of the excess stock online.
And when do you see that ching, David?
So we're looking at Q4 this year. The technology is largely built and we're through the UAT side at the moment. It will be lined up with the Big Give campaign, which I described earlier, where we'll team up with the good causes and they will have all the proceeds with no reserve price being able to be donated to that good cause. And we'll hopefully, get some really good retailers on board for that.
Okay. Just going through a couple of the questions here. They sort of all center around ultimately what any investor wants to know in some sort of summary. Why invest in Better That? I know you've got a crowdfunding campaign that's going live. What in summary do you think from an investor standpoint are the key things that you want them to know?
In short, Tim, I think it's the right product in the right space at the right time. What I mean by that is where we talked about earlier, the progression of retail spend to the online environment is an inexorable trend. It is just not going to stop. So we're part of that. We've got a platform which has a real point of difference in terms of the good cause element. So yes, it's a feel-good factor. Yes, it's a relatively cheap means of consumer acquisition. So it ties both of those things together neatly. And we've also got the drop auction product, which we've talked about today, which is a unique point of difference to any other platform out there.
Yeah, very good summary. I noticed in your offer document, you talk about the future prediction for revenue from e-commerce platforms in Australia being 55 billion, which is on 2025, which is a massive amount.
So I think it's really important that people understand how big these numbers are. So yes, that's the absolute, but think about the growth rates. 20% last year, predictions by Euromonitor that it will grow 8% every year for the next 5 years. I mean, these are huge numbers, and we're not predicting that we'll have 20% of that market. In fact, quite small numbers, but it is a huge market to be part of. It's a great market to be part of.
And ultimately, the question that comes from every investor is a liquidity event in the future. What is the investment horizon for someone that puts money in now? You're not listed. What do you see sort of the 3 to 5 year projection in relation to trade sale, IPO, Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, like our target is to have an exit within the next 2 to 5 years. We believe that that the first part to that exit is further private equity into this business, and aligning ourselves with some bigger partners. This is post the crowdsource funding raise.
Yep.
And then we see the option is either a trade sale, take out where someone else wants this platform, or an IPO. They're the two key ones as far as the exit. And the board are extremely focused on that exit mechanism over the next 2 to 5 years.
Okay, well, big thank you to David and Jeff joining me on Questions from the Crowd. We look forward to a successful raise.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Cheers.